The silence of teenagers is not what you think. When they answer you distractedly in monosyllables, it's not disinterest, it's not disrespect, and it's not even that emotional distance we fear might signal the end of the relationship. It's something more complex, more biological, more human than all of that. It's the result of a brain undergoing radical reconstruction, trying to navigate a world it perceives as dangerously unpredictable. When you ask your teenage child, "How was your day?" and you get nothing but a whispered, "Fine," or a shrug or a door closing, you're not receiving a rejection of who you are. You're receiving the response of a nervous system that has classified that question, innocent as it may be, as a potential threat. And here lies the truth that few parents truly understand. Teenage silence is not a problem to be solved. It's a language to be learned. There's something fundamental we must understand before we can even approach the emotional world of a teenager. Their brain is literally under construction, and like any construction site, it's chaotic, unpredictable, full of dangerous zones and warning signs. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thought, long-term planning, and impulse control, is still developing. It's the executive center, the part that's supposed to say, maybe yelling at mom over a bowl of cereal isn't necessary, or I don't need to obsess over that embarrassing hallway moment for the next 6 months. But that part is still forming, like a house whose roof hasn't yet been completed. Meanwhile, the amygdala is fully active. This is the part of the brain that functions as an emotional smoke detector. It reacts to stress, fear, embarrassment, and perceived threats as if they were fires that must be extinguished immediately. And during adolescence, this system isn't just active, it's hypersensitive. What you get is a brain running on emergency signals without a fully developed control tower. That means your child is feeling more than they've ever felt before, while simultaneously having fewer tools to manage those feelings. The emotional volume is turned all the way up, but the coping strategies are still being learned in real time. To you, a simple question like, "What happened at school today?" might seem neutral or supportive, but to them, it could trigger a dozen internal responses. Did I say something stupid in class? Are they judging me? Do they think I messed up again? You're not exaggerating. That's actually how the teenage brain processes social interactions. It's wired to scan for social threats before anything else, because peer acceptance feels like a matter of survival. And when you add academic stress, social media pressure, hormonal changes, an evolving identity, and the need for independence, it becomes clear that silence isn't apathy, it's protection. Here's a hard truth that might sting a bit. Your teenage child won't open up to you just because you're their parent. They don't care about your title. They care about how safe you feel. And safe doesn't mean I bought dinner and drove you to soccer practice. Safe means I can tell you I'm falling apart without you turning it into a lecture. Because trust, real, functional teenage trust, isn't built through hugs and inspirational fridge magnets. It's built through something far less glamorous and far more demanding. It's called co-regulation. Co-regulation means that when they lose their mind, you don't lose yours. When they bring chaos, you bring calm. When they bring attitude, you bring consistency. When they storm off dramatically because you dared to ask how they're doing, you don't chase them down with a whiteboard full of strategies. You stay grounded. And here's where most parents get it wrong. You think teenagers shut down because they're rude, moody, or ungrateful. They shut down because their brain is running a 24/7 threat detection system. And guess what counts as a threat? Being corrected, being judged, being misunderstood, being hit with that classic adult tone. Let's talk about this calmly, which really means, buckle up, I'm about to psychoanalyze your entire personality over a bowl of cereal. The teenage brain isn't subtle, it's not relaxed, it's scanning every second for signs of emotional danger. And danger for a teenager can mean anything from, "You look worried," to, "Why did you sigh before asking me that question?" So, if they sense that your concern is actually anxiety disguised as control, or that your interest is just a prelude to another motivational speech, their nervous system hits the eject button. There's a phrase that should be etched into every parenting book, tattooed on every forearm, maybe even embroidered on decorative pillows. I can handle your emotions without making them my own. When your teenager realizes they can bring their real emotions, not the sanitized versions, not the rehearsed ones, but the raw, wrinkled, messy ones, and you don't flinch, you become their safe place, even if they keep rolling their eyes at you, and it doesn't start big, they don't suddenly come downstairs and deliver a monologue about their identity crisis and social anxiety. They test you with crumbs, half a sentence about a teacher being unfair, a sarcastic comment that seems meaningless but isn't, a vague whatever that carries more emotional weight than a Shakespearean soliloquy. And if those crumbs aren't brushed away, if they're met with presence instead of panic, you get another crumb, then a slice, then eventually something that looks like real connection. But here's the hard part, you can't speed it up. There's no shortcut, no script, no 5-minute conversation hack to unlock your child's emotional core. There's only consistency, regulation, repetition. Because trust isn't built in breakthrough moments. It's built in your reactions to everyday irritations. When you stay calm through their mood swings, when you don't retaliate when they say something hurtful, when you keep showing up even when they pretend not to care, that's the blueprint. Here's a trap most parents fall into. You say you want connection, but you're still chasing control. You ask questions not because you're curious, but because you want to steer them. You give advice not because they asked, but because you see the mistake coming from a mile away. And of course you do. You've lived longer. You know better. But here's the paradox. The more you try to manage the conversation, the less real conversation you'll get. Teenagers don't open up to people who try to change them. They open up to people willing to witness who they are. So swap questions for statements. I know school's felt heavy lately, or you've seemed quieter this week and I'm here if things ever feel rough. You don't have to answer now. I just wanted to check in. That's how you earn real answers, not by asking for them, but by becoming someone safe enough to offer them to. If you want a real conversation, don't make your teenager sit down to have a talk. That's basically a shutdown alarm. Instead, use the car rule. Conversations flow better when there's no direct eye contact. There's no pressure to respond. The energy feels neutral, casual, safe. Car rides, folding laundry, doing the dishes together, even sunset walks. Why? Because the nervous system stays more relaxed when it doesn't feel cornered. And relaxed brains are more willing to open tabs they normally keep closed. Don't fill the silence. Let it breathe. Don't expect a grand revelation. Just offer your presence. And when the words come, let them come, without interruption. Sometimes the deepest conversations grow from the smallest spaces. If you only ask your teenager what's wrong when something is wrong, they'll associate your interest with their dysfunction. But if you ask about their world on an ordinary day, when the sky is clear, you begin to build what psychologists call relational scaffolding. It's the accumulation of emotionally neutral moments that makes the hard ones bearable. So check in when nothing's broken, sit next to them when there's nothing to fix, ask about their favorite shows, their friends, their playlists, not because it's a trick, but because it's a pattern, and patterns build safety. Safety builds trust. Trust builds conversation. And yes, you'll mess up sometimes. You'll overreact, lose your cool, say the wrong thing. But if you take responsibility, if you show them that adults are human too, that builds trust even faster. Because in the end, teenagers don't need perfect parents. They need emotionally safe ones. They need someone who can say, I was wrong last night when I yelled. I was tired and frustrated, but that wasn't fair. That kind of vulnerability opens doors no perfect speech ever could. So when your teenager shuts down, answers in monosyllables, seems like an emotional enigma, remember this: they're not rejecting you. They're protecting themselves. They're navigating an inner world so intense, so complex, that sometimes silence is the only way to handle it. Your job isn't to break that silence by force. It's to create a space where that silence can eventually turn into words, where they know that when they're ready to talk, you'll be there, not with judgment, not with solutions, not with lessons, just with presence. Because teenage silence isn't the end of connection, it's often the beginning of something deeper, an independence emerging, an identity forming, a person learning who they are beyond who you think they should be. And if you can respect that process, if you can witness their evolution without trying to control it, something magical happens, not immediately, not perfectly, but gradually. One day when you least expect it, in the car or while folding laundry, your child will start to talk. Not because you did everything right, but because you created enough safety for the risk of vulnerability to feel bearable. And in that moment, you'll understand the silence was never the enemy. It was just the antechamber of trust. And you, by staying present through it all, became the person worth breaking that silence for. Write in the comments if you ever experience these situations and how you usually react. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos.